Welcome back to another episode of Making It Fun, everyone. If you love simple quilts, this is another great one for you. The basic basket weave. Let's get started. That is right, everybody. A super simple project today. The very basic basket weave. But like I said, there's a little something special, a little twist for all of you. And don't worry, I'll drag out the video like I love to do. You know I love to talk. I'm overly caffeinated and super excited that you are all here. Like I said, welcome back. My name is Rob Appell, National Sales Manager for Michael Miller Fabrics, but also the maker of fun. And you are at Making It Fun here. And we are super excited. And yes, normally we are playing with the basic fabrics from Michael Miller Fabrics, encouraging all of you to constantly frequent your local quilt shops and learn to work with your basics so that you can help bring a little extra something spicy to your quilts. I want to take you all down a study in the future about how we work with different prints and different colors and different fabrics to get different effects from our quilts is probably the easiest way to say it. Now this is a brand, or excuse me, this is a grouping that I absolutely love. It is from Michael Miller Fabrics. It's called Culture Club, and it's a really fun, bright novelty print series. Started shipping out in July. There are a bunch of really great prints. So you know at Michael Miller, everybody loves our llama prints we do. We also have a really cool sea turtle with I love these medallions in the background, but I'm also using some fun coordinates, and I'll talk about some of the fabrics here in a few minutes. As we dive in, this is our palette for today. You can see it up on the wall, and I hope you can see the actual transition or the basket weave you see between the white llamas and the yellow sea, or I keep calling them sea turtles, but they're probably tortoise, right? So anyways, these yellow tortoise that run through the quilt. And like I said, the extra little something spicy to the traditional basket weave is I've used multiple fabrics per each block. So let's break this down, but before we get into the instructions too far, let's just take a moment, like I said, and talk about some of these other fantastic coordinates. You can see there's a bunch of beautiful fabrics from this line. It's been a very popular seller. You know, we try to encourage you, like I said, to shop locally, hit those local quilt shops. They really depend on your business. They depend on seeing your smiling faces, getting those hugs when you come in. Tell them that Rob and Mike said hello. And the cool thing about being in a quilt shop, though, is you can match lots of different fabrics. You can blend these wonderful prints with your basics, and you can give your quilt even more impact and even a little bit more pop. And that might be one of the things that you're seeing today in this project, and I did it specifically. I used all prints, and I actually used all medium and or small scale prints, a couple kind of read as tonals as you see in the turquoise here, but I wanted to put a lot of business, a lot of busyness in your eyes with this project so that down the road, as I keep teaching you some of the things that will happen as we add stillness into our project by adding solids, you'll be able to interpret the difference a little bit. So anyways, this is my long-term teaching method on a very simple project. Like I said, I promised to drag out the video. There, that's all done. Let's get that out of the way and get back to our lovely palette. So we are doing a basic basket weave, and you can see the lineup down here. It's going to be super simple use of two different blocks. And one of the things I wanted to do is build out my color coordinates. So for each block, I basically chose a theme set. So these are my two theme prints. And usually within a basket weave, you're gonna have a wide strip and then a coordinating background. And the background is usually the same fabric for both blocks so that it looks like your fabrics are weaving in and out of each other. I wanted to play more with my beautiful Culture Club fabric, so I chose the same color families, but different prints. So you can see here, the wonderful medallion print, and then this, I don't even know what to call it, but I just absolutely love it. These were used to be represented as the same fabrics, but one per each of my theme fabrics. And then I did the same, and so that I didn't use the same prints in the same block, I went ahead and took the green coordinate to this one that I still don't know the name of and put it over here. And then this wonderful like Aztec looking stripe. I just love this as well. And that actually adds in, as you can see, splashes of more of the white throughout the the quilt. It adds a lot more character to your eye, and I chose geometric prints so they would be dancing around in your eye and adding a lot more of that busyness. A lot of folks really like that appearance in their quilts. Some folks like to call it scrappy, hide business under a different name, where you're using a lot of different prints, a lot of different focus, a lot for your eye to take in and enjoy. So that's part of the concept behind this project. So the first thing you're going to need to do with your basket weave quilt is basically choose 2 different fabrics for your middles of your blocks. Okay, now whether you choose to add a secondary color and then a third color, just try to keep those colors so that they're of the same color family, so that they basically transition through, so you're only seeing the theme fabrics weave or basket weave throughout your quilt project, right? So that's the simple fabric choices. Let's set those back up with the rest of the lovely menu and then give you an idea. Again, here is a block that we are building. This is a block that we are creating. This is one of them, and here is the other one, as you can see, and they do have a very similar color appearance on the edges. That was intentional. Now, the way we got there, though, folks, is we started with strips and made what we call a strip set row. So if you're brand new to quilting, welcome to the club. It is quite addicting, and you'll be safe with me here. I promise to only sell you a little bit each week. Now, this is what we call a strip set row, meaning that I made a bunch of strips into a set, and it is now a row in a project, but I can cut this apart and do different things. Now, I want to point out something that's really fun, because I can see this in the camera across the room from where I'm standing right now. You can see the way that the different fabrics relate in different, I'm going to say, quantities, because in this row there's a lot more value to the fabrics you're seeing than in the individual squares as they come and become a portion of the quilt. So when you're picking fabrics, that's one of the things that you want to be thinking about. How do they look all together, but how do they look in different proportions or proportionalities, where this quilt actually everything kind of gets equal play, where right now in this stripe you see the yellow strip getting most of the attention, so these bright ones on the outside are fighting across these midtones in the center, and that's what's causing that extra spice, picante impact that you're seeing in the fabrics. And that's one of the reasons I love to play with fabric and color so much. So anyways, we're gonna build these, and you actually, right now on the design wall, I have a 5 by 5 square layout, roughly a 50-inch by 50-inch square quilt up on the wall. You can make this any size you want. I prepared for 5 each strip, so I could actually make this out to 60 by 60 or 6 squares by 6 squares, but I ran out of design wall space, as you can't see, because I ran out of design wall space. So anyways, let's talk you through the math on some of these and make it make sense, okay? And because I'm working from rows to get squares, there's something that I really was up against, something that I was really fighting to work within, and that was 10 inches. Because what I want to be able to do is get as much out of this row set as possible. So most fabric is going to finish roughly between 42 and 44 inches, and that also includes the selvage where we print our information, and the fact that not every bolt comes from the same location or vendor or manufacturer, and you can probably see on this end that not everything came out perfectly lined up like it did on this side. Now, you know I've got tricks for that, but this isn't how it happens, and that's okay. So we need to account for this. So when I'm trying to get even measurements out of here, and I want to try to get like 4 full squares out of there, I don't want my measurements to get over 10 inches or maybe 10.5 inches wide. So on the width of this strip here, from here to here, it's finished at 10 inches after I've taken in my 1/4 inch seam allowances. So let me tell you how I did that. So you're going to start with a basic theme strip. That will be your widest. And for us, for this math, you can just trust 4 inches for my center strip. Okay? Now for every row, so I basically cut 5 of these from each fabric, but then I did cut 10 because I need 1 on each side of my, what I'm just going to call, if this is my wide, this will be my medium strips for now. And like I said, a lot of basket weaves really just stop right here. So therefore I could have made this strip much wider, and I could have left these at 2.5 like they already are. So I have 2.5 here, 2.5 here, 4 inches here, and then my outside measurements are 1.5 inches, and partially that was one of my limiting factors. I don't really like to get much smaller than a 1-inch cut because we know it's just gonna get itsy bitsy tiny whiny in the actual quilt itself, and you wouldn't have seen as much of the impact from this as you do over on the design wall. So 1.5 inches were my narrow strips, 2.5 inches were my medium strips, and 4 inch was my wide strip. And when that's all stitched together, that ends up cutting back down to a 10-inch wide. So then I measure that just to make sure that we all have the same 1/4 inch. And once that was built, I took my rotary cutter and I went ahead and cut down 10-inch by 10-inch squares of both of my fabrics. The one with my turtles in it and the ones with my llamas in it. Now, I'm just going to keep talking, like I said, to keep this video fairly brief today, but if you're interested, I do have an entire video about the success for sewing strips together, or successful steps to successful strip sewing, something like that I call it. Here's the trick. Set your seam allowance to about a 2.0 millimeter instead of a 2.5, and I sew them all from one side down so that I maximize the amount of usable space within my strip, as you saw me doing a moment ago, by having all of my fabrics start up top with my selvage and work their way down so that I have just a little bit to trim off at the bottom, and then I can start cutting those perfect 10-inch squares from the row. Super simple, right? I told you it would be easy. Now there's something else I did in this particular pattern that I just wanted to play with. Maybe you've already picked up on it. If not, I'm going to explain it now. And it will probably make the most sense if I just bring in my little visual aids back over here. When you look at these fabrics, my llama fabric here is what we consider a directional print. All of the llamas are standing in the grass or the flowers. Machu Picchu, where I saw them last, they're alpaca there though. And at any rate, my turtles you see here are what we call a tossed print or an all over print. So the turtles are heading in all different directions, where my llama are all heading in the same direction or all standing upright. And whenever we have something, especially a character, something that has an eye, a human, an animal, you know, a cartoon, whatever it is, if it's got a personality, we really want it to stay right sides up. So if you look at the design wall again, real quickly, what I really did do is I made sure that all of my llama prints were right sides up, and that's why the white fabric or the llama print in my basket weave is my horizontal, and I used the yellow fabric, the turtle fabric, as my vertical because it was directional on the white and universal on the yellow, the turtles. So that's something else that you might want to keep in mind when you're auditioning your fabrics for your basic basket weave project, is if you have anything that is very directional, you probably would like to use that as your wide middle strip so that you see more of it, and then you can also take the time to just organize your squares before you go to your sewing machine and make sure that you just maintain the proper direction for those directional prints, right? Speaking of sewing machines, it was a very simple project for me to put together. And like I said, I will grow this quilt after today's video because I will be taking it off the design wall and making it big enough to go out on my couch, most likely, right? I really like the way these fabrics have come together. So right now it is 5 by 5. To fit my body best, I might go to 6 by 8. I might stay at 5 by 7 or 5 by 8. You now know the math of the squares are roughly 10 inches. So if I say 8, it's going to finish 80 minus, 4 inches for seam allowances, something like that. So you can kind of do your own calculations that way. But I wasn't even working at the design wall when I was putting my rows together, because it was easy enough knowing that I had 5, that I would just literally take 1, 2, 3 of one of the prints and 2 of the other. And as I was sewing them together, I just needed to make sure that as I was working, that my horizontal stripe from my turtles was being stitched against my llamas. Right, as I was here, I would be working like this, right sides together. And then when I brought in the next piece, all I had to do was just make sure that my orientation was still correct with the first set of llamas I had created. And then I would just flip this right over like this, put it here, and then sew with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you'll notice here I pressed, well, did my best, pressed as many of my seams in one direction as I possibly could. And that made it real nice because as I was sewing, I was often traveling down the seam allowance, making the construction very, very simple. And I would recommend this kind of a project for one of my that was beginner and new quilter all at the same time. One of my newbies, one of my beginning quilting friends. Something like this could be terrific. So let's just talk about a couple of the things I said in super high speed caffeination mode, just so you really know what we were talking about. Keep that direction the same, right? One of the things I was really pointing out is keeping my wide print in the middle, and most basket weaves will be a 2-color where I went 3-color, but keeping the edge pieces roughly the same color or exactly the same background color will help that weave show up as you go through. We wanted to make sure our directional prints were upright, so I chose the llama to run in the horizontal and my turtles to go vertical in here. I was also making sure that I didn't use the same print in the same row, so I didn't use the green version here. That just adds more interest into my quilt and my fabric choices. And as you walk further and further back from this quilt, you get a whole different impression. And that's one of the things that's really cool about looking at quilts as well, is you can often get 2 different vantage points about your project. You can look at them up close and see one entirely different piece, step further back and see something completely different in the project. And I do encourage all of you to do that often so that you're really getting the entire benefit of the art and or the blanket that you're creating. I don't know a great word. I was gonna say the art and the craft. Maybe that's the better term for it, because I know that a lot of us make quilts to appease our need to make art. And I know the rest of us make quilts to appease our need to make something to give to somebody else, something to put on our body, something that creates a lot of warmth and love and character, and that's what quilt making really is. So anyways, just a real quick talkistration today on how to put together a basic basket weave project here. So glad you were here today. Make sure you check out the Culture Club fabric from Michael Miller next time you're in one of your local quilt shops. And until then, we'll see you next time at Making It Fun. Wow, you are still there. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of the video. I know, I get a little long-winded sometimes. But if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you check out a few of the other ones we've created. I think they're terrific. And of course, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the little bell to be notified. I don't want you to miss a moment of the fun. Stay safe and happy sewing.